that I left you. I know you feel alone, but God told me that He needed me. He called me to come home.
Wow. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back tonight, but once again, I am tired of breaking bad news. It is yet another bad news. It is yet another bad news. I'll be making the announcement in a moment. Thank you all for commenting on my cap, but we've lost another good friend, a sister this time around, more like a daughter, all the way in the Republic of Liberia. I'm expecting the Vice President of the Republic of Liberia to join us. I don't know how soon that will be, because just today, the Republic of Liberia lost one of our top politicians, the majority leader of the House of Representatives in Liberia, Honorable Muna Pelham Youngblood. Muna was a daughter to me, was very, very, very close to me. She lived in Nigeria during the war in Liberia. She was a refugee, but her height stood her out, and she became a very, very famous, very, very, very famous supermodel in Nigeria. Now I can see Her Excellency online, so let me bring her in, and then Your Excellency, I was just saying I'm not sure how soon you'll be able to join us because of the sad event earlier today. But I must thank you for still finding time to join me. The internet. Okay, I hope your internet stays well, Your Excellency. Yes, I've just been joined by the Vice President of the Republic of Liberia, Dr. Joel Howard Taylor. Good evening, ma.
Good evening, Dele. It is indeed a sad day.
It's a very, very, very
morning.
sad day. Yes, I'll be talking to you first in a moment about Muna. Well, before we do that, we have our protocol. We'll play a song and wish that our soul will rest in peace. Muna was a very, very close daughter of mine. So please. When peace, my Excellency, good evening.
Good evening, Baba Dele.
How is Liberia this evening?
Well, everybody is in shock about the passing of Mona. She left at the beginning of the COVID to be in Accra, and we thought we would have seen her back. Everybody is really shocked from the presidency down. And she had touched so many lives that everyone is just in awe of what has happened of her passing.
It's incredible because I first knew Muna when she came to Nigeria during the war. She was in Nigeria as a refugee, and she walked her way to the top and became a supermodel in Nigeria. Every now and then, when we had our events, she would participate. Then I saw her in Liberia when I came with Iyadura, Mama Esther Jayi, when you hosted us in Liberia. She was with us. She came for lunch with you and Mama, and she sat with me on the table. Then the last time I saw her, I think, was around February in Ghana. Someone just stabbed me, and I looked back, and it turned out to be Muna. I said, Muna, what are you doing there? She said she was coming from Nigeria and passing through Ghana. So I thought she was leaving back to Liberia, only to get a call from my friends at Shiro's this afternoon that they have bad news for me. And when they mentioned Muna, I lost it totally, because this week, that will be a second friend this week. May her soul rest in peace. Could you talk briefly about Muna's foray into politics? So I knew she was doing some business. She used to come to Nigeria to buy things to sell in Liberia. Could you tell how she became probably the youngest member of the House of Reps? You are in charge of both the Senate and the House of Reps, apart from being the Vice President. Could you explain your style of politics?
Well, I'm Vice President and President of the Senate, and then we have a Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Okay.
She was the youngest female ever elected to the legislature. So everywhere she went, she became the star. She was very outspoken on issues, and she always took a position. Sometimes politicians shift. This day they're in red, maybe the next day they're in black, but she was one of those women leaders who stood for the cause. She believed in women's empowerment, and she was an embodiment of what could happen if women were empowered, and so she became a voice. We're unfortunate last year to lose another female that strong, Geraldine Doe Sheriff, also a strong icon of the women's movement here in Liberia. But Muna, because she was so young, she came on the stage when bring things back and forth. She's always been involved at the national level, at different levels. She became a mentor and an icon for females who aspire to be politicians. She went around speaking about the issues that we faced. She was a strong voice for the gender equity that we've been clamoring for, because we always understand that women in politics is a difficult field, and that if you want to be in that field, it will be easier if we had some quota system. And so she was one of those who believed that the quota system would help us get more women. Because when Madam Salih got elected in 2005 and began, there were many more women at the forefront of the governance in the executive and in the legislative branch. Over the years, we've continued to lose them. Maybe half of them have died of some sickness or the other, and others have lost their seat. But with Muna, she stood out. Of course, she was very, very, very tall. And whenever she stood by me, I would tell her I need to get on a chair so I don't look like a child. But she was always there when it came to talking about these issues. You'll be surprised the last message I got from Muna about a month ago. She had reached out to me, "Oh, Madam Vice President, how are you?" And I said, well, you know, we're here. The COVID is giving us a problem because people don't believe that there's COVID. Can you imagine? They're still acting as if life is normal. So our numbers keep rising. And she said to me, you know, I feel so sad that they're not in the legislature. She said there's a seat coming up for uh, election in 2020 for a seat for Montserrat County. And I'm planning on running for that Senate seat. You know, so I text her back. I said, well, you need to talk to Chief. You know, I don't know what they're deciding, the fact that you're not here. And that was just probably about a month ago when I got the last time I spoke with her. And she had texted me her interest in running for the Senate seat here in Montserrat that's up for elections in December. So even though she may have been ill, she still wanted, you know, enough representation for women at the Senate. We have 30 members of the Liberian Senate. There's only one woman. So we've all been
Wow.
saying if we're, yes, to bring women on board, then we lose our space that we, you know, got during the tenure of Madam Sirleaf. And so she was saying we can't allow the party members. I'll send you the text. We can't allow the party to just bring on board all men. Where are the women? You know, we need to ensure that there are women on board also. So even though she wasn't well, she was still thinking about how women would be in representation of women in the Senate.
Wow.
And we have lost a pillar of our movement, not just here. You know, she would travel to Nigeria, travel to Ghana, travel to other places with the Shiras movement, identifying strong women heroes and allowing them to mentor her. And she got a chance to mentor some people too. So we've lost a real hero. And we're really sad this evening.
Well, it's very sad because anytime I wanted to know what's happening to you, all I had to do was to call Muna because she would tell me the truth. Is my sister in any trouble? And she will say, don't worry, calm down, your sister is okay, you know. So we've lost a good friend, a good sister, and a good daughter of Africa. May her soul rest in peace.
I like the fact that you mentioned the fact that she was always bold and she will always say the truth. You
She
know,
will tell
whenever
you
you
the
met her,
truth.
conversations with her, they
She
say, you know,
gives
this is
me, she will give all the
the truth.
analysis. Yeah, she will give all the analysis. And, you know, I've always known her to be fiercely loyal to Chief. And so every now and then I'll say, I hope you have told Chief about this, Chief should do this, Chief, because we all want you and the president to survive. Africa needs that strong unity. You are part of the ECOWAS, and our interest is that after all that Liberia has gone through in the past, you must succeed, and I pray that your country will continue to succeed. Yes, I had wanted to speak to you mainly about how Liberia is coping at this time with COVID-19. If you could tell us about it.
Well, we started off a little slow and our numbers are small if you compare it to the big countries. But if you look at the percentage, we're really at a high level. I don't think we've reached our peak yet because even as we speak about wearing masks when you go out of your home, maybe 30–40% of the people are doing so. So the numbers are rising. Sometimes the contact isn't clearly given. People are hiding contact for whatever reasons that we find out that, you know, someone might have COVID, and when you ask them, who, you know, where have you been? Who's been in contact with you? I think all of the information has not been given. So our contact tracing is limited to what they say, and the numbers keep going up and up and up. And I think we have a challenge ahead of us. All of us must get involved. The president was asking a few weeks ago for everyone to add their voice to the COVID. I know I've been involved with providing food rations and different things and cleaning materials to young women across the country. But I think much more needs to be done in terms of adding our voice and trying to convince our people that indeed this is a very serious disease. Because it's an enemy you can't, you know, so you could sit with someone, they could have COVID and not even be sick for the moment they're in. And by the time you come to yourself 3 or 4 days later, they're very sick. So we've lost some people. I think about 30 persons have died over the 3 or 4 months, but our numbers are almost over 500 that are now sick with COVID. There's another 400 or something that we're watching to see whether they're positive. So we have a high number, and I think a little bit more needs to be done in terms of getting others involved, like the religious community, like the traditional leaders, so that they can give the message that everybody will believe that this is a real threat to us as Liberians. I'm hoping that we'll get a little bit more involved with it so that people can know that it is the truth.
Yes, I love the way the president has thrown himself fully into the fight and into giving out information. I saw the music he recorded. Could you tell us how effective that has been?
Well, I know he was proactive in putting in place a small committee with healthcare officials and then our international friends and partners who are involved with us in this process. He ensured that we got supplies. He had applied to JAGMA at the time, and we got a lot of supplies from China. There has been an issue of getting some COVID medication from Madagascar. Remember, that was a real serious talk, and everybody was saying, you know, we shouldn't use it, but he went out to get it. A few days ago, he arranged the rapid tests, the 5 or 8 minutes rapid test that could be used at the airport because we wanted our airports opened. So we're slowly trying to bring our country back to a state of normalcy. And as he said, this is something we will live with for many years. So we need to really deal with it in the way it should be so that the economy can come back on track so we don't lose, you know, whatever advantage we had before this began. So he's been involved in helping stabilize. He's been involved. He made a song that I think one of the NGOs are using to talk about the fact that COVID is real. And he's been hands-on with it and taking a position where he's actually ensuring the things that need to be done. So we want to thank him in a very special way for being the leader that he has been in this COVID fight.
Yes, I must salute him because a lot of countries have been quite slow in the fight. And what do you think about finding an African solution? Why is everyone always waiting for vaccines to come from abroad? Does it mean that Africans cannot come up with their own vaccines?
And you know, with all of the controversy around the vaccination and a lot of scientists saying that, you know, it's poison, it's this, it's that. I think the Senegalese, if I'm right, have been working on a formula. And I think the Madagascan government also has produced a formula. It's not a vaccine, but if you do get sick with it, you know, you can actually take it, and I think it's been working. So we must look at the remedies that we have, local remedies. Again, it's a cold. You get a very bad cold initially, and before it hits your lungs, if you go into the herbal treatments of ginger and lime and all of the things that you can mix with it when you have a bad cold, you can actually deal with it and live. I think when you wait too long and you do get really sick and it goes into your lungs, that's when it becomes a difficult disease. But identifying it initially, a lot of people are on vitamin C, you know, and selenium and zinc so that it builds up your immune system. I think if everyone would do that, we'll eventually get over this. And where it's also important because it saves you and it also saves the people around you. So I think all of the measures that are being considered, whether it's washing hands or wearing your mask or talking about it, all of those things must be hyped up a little bit more so that our people can remain safe.
Fantastic. Now, the thing about COVID-19 is you are not sure what exactly can cure it, but we know the things that can treat it. It's treatable, even if not curable. Is Liberia willing to try everything? Because there are countries where people believe it has some symptoms of malaria. In fact, one of our high chiefs in Nigeria, High Chief Raymond Dokwesin, the owner of AIT Television, I'm sure you are familiar with the television channel. It's a very popular one in Nigeria. Himself and about 9 members of his family tested positive. And he said that all they took were malaria drugs. But some countries like America are frowning at anti-malaria drugs and all that. Are you willing to try anything? Because whether you try or you don't try, someone is about to die. So why not try? Or will Africa continue to follow sheepishly and say, no, they will not try those drugs?
And then we need to put our scientists to work so that they could find a cure for it. Because I think we have the same capacities on the continent. When the Madagascan government came up with this formula, everybody was frowning at it. But now we found out that it's actually helpful and it's curing those who have gotten it. We have some here that we're using also. So I think those local remedies and then what may be available can be used. I think what is making people afraid is the issue of the whole vaccine thing around COVID, and the fact that they've scared everybody about the vaccines, that they could actually be poisoned. I've seen videos of smallpox, yellow fever, and smallpox vaccinations that were given in the early 60s. And now you hear that they have all kinds of things in it, to make people sick, to kill more persons. And then they had certain numbers that they wanted to get killed with it. So there's a lot of stories about the fact that we don't know who's manufacturing it. We're not sure where it's coming from or what's in it. So people are afraid of the vaccine. That's why I think Africa must find a way to deal with this disease and see how we on our own can produce our own drugs that we're sure of what it is. Because the issues of vaccines now have just become a little bit too scary. And if someone were to bring a vaccine to Monrovia and say people should take it, I wouldn't take my grandchildren to take it either, because I'm not sure, what the effect would be, hearing all of these stories that keep coming up from scientists around the world. So if they're the scientists and they're saying people need to be careful about not taking the vaccinations, and the fact that it was created in the lab as a test, biological warfare. I mean, there's a lot of information that makes you afraid. And I think Africa should find a way to find our own solution so we can be sure and secure that we're getting the best, and that we're not getting poisoned.
But don't you think it's all social media hype? Because when I spoke with Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, okay, and who is part of the organizations, the World Health Organization, and very soon they believe whenever the vaccine is available, she will be one of those talking to the different countries. If we have someone like that, do you think they will allow people to come and kill Africans? So I think our countries should do more by reaching out to people like her for more explanation, because we've always taken vaccines since we were young. I still have some marks on my left arm from my childhood days. So they used to give us jabs. So why suddenly, and people mention Bill Gates, but Bill Gates helped us to take care of polio in some parts of Nigeria, especially in northern Nigeria. So why suddenly we are afraid and we think Bill Gates wants to kill everybody? I don't know why.
Dele, the world is not just what we see, and that's the truth. There are dimensions to our world. There are people at different levels doing different things, and sometimes you get a story that had been hidden, and it's a security story, and they wait 50 years and then they release it. A friend of mine sent me a security report that speaks about Kwame Nkrumah and how there was a plot to have him killed. And his best friends, closest friends, were a part of this plot. And so at the beginning of 2019, he was saying to me, at the level you're at, you have to look at everything with the second and the third eye. And then I said, what are you talking about? And he sends me the security report that had now been released. There was a woman who was even involved as a friend of President Nkrumah, who was a part of the plot to have him killed. And when you see those kinds of stories, you just have to, it's half a dozen in one hand and six in another, because you have to now look at it in a different light. That is not as simple as it seems. And if people could create these vaccines coming from the West and you're not sure what is in it, they could use a face like our sister and say, well, once her face is there, people will feel a little bit more comfortable. But I don't know if she's not a scientist, if she's followed through what is being put in it and what you can secure that this is the medicine that's in this thing. We don't know. And when you hear the old stories of how, the blacks were treated, the things that have been done, you can't just ignore it. And I think that's why most people are afraid. But if it was something coming from, an African country as a, vaccine, and I'm sure we could create our own vaccines, no, we have a problem. But, some of the vaccines we take now, as we give our children or grandchildren, they don't give it anymore in Europe and America. Those diseases have been wiped out. So we don't know what's in the vial. We have no way of checking it. And so it's a little scary.
Hmm. That's very serious. Okay. We have spent almost 30 minutes now. Let's move quickly to something that interests me. The last time we spoke, we didn't have enough time to deal with this. You have been one of the longest women in power in Africa. You were once First Lady of Liberia, then you became a senator for about 12 years, I believe, and now you are Vice President. What are the challenges of leadership? What contributes to the failure of leadership from your wealth of experience?
I read a book many years ago. It's called, I think, Men Are from Mars and Women Are from Venus. It's an important book, and I wish I had read it, when I started, maybe when I got married first. It talks about the differences in the way males behave as opposed to how women behave. And if you go and do a research, you'll find out that those countries that are headed by women leaders have gotten the COVID thing under control, and their numbers are reducing, and they're getting their countries back to normal. Whereas those who are headed by men are still struggling with some of the issues. And there's a whole study on it. But when you look at the leadership styles of women, I think they're very different from the way men lead. We're engaging, we're progressive, we are problem solvers. So we look at the problem and find out what can be done. And we make up our minds on what we want to do. We stick with it until we get to the end. And we're open to many voices, maybe because we're mothers, and that's how women operate. You have to listen, you have to learn, you have to ask questions. If an issue comes to a woman, she'll ask her husband, she'll ask her father, she'll go ask her siblings, she'll ask her friends. She wants to get an idea of what others think before she makes up her mind. And when you're in governance, those traits that we carry as a natural part of who we are actually helps us in the governance process. But women leadership has been a difficult thing for most of Africa and even Europe and America. I hope in America, maybe choosing as vice president, but they are the ones who speak to the issues of rights. And even they are still struggling with allowing women the chance to be a part of the governance process. And I think that's our biggest challenge. How do men see us? How do men allow us the space to be a partner or a helpmate? Sometimes I know people say I'm too aggressive. I like to come into the middle of it and I try to solve a problem. But I remember pastor told me when we won, he said, hey, you are vice president, you're not president, you have to stand in the back. But if you look at Liberia and see all of what's happening, all hands are needed on deck because maybe one person is a financial expert. Someone has access to some friends outside that can help. Another one is a visionary and they can say, we're dreaming about getting this done. So if you have to succeed, you have to find people who can do all of those things. But if you find only a few persons who you think can help, then you lose the vision, you lose the stamina, you lose the energy of so many others that could come in to help. And sometimes the leadership style of men is, to keep things on a wraps, like they say, keep it under the control of one person. And it makes it difficult because we're moving into whatever we do as a nation or as a community, everyone has to get involved. And so I think women have that challenge if and when you do get to a stage where you want to be more of a help, and then they say, oh, she wants to take over and she wants to do this. It's not that way, but people see it like that. And then they use it in cases where you end up being, completely outside of the circle. Again, when you do that, you're leaving all of the potential that comes to the table, half of what you can get to help you solve problems are not used. the men see us. And it took a speaker of the Rwandan parliament to explain to a group of Liberians. And he said to them, because we are taking them from the legislature to go and learn the Rwandan model, because we're looking for ways to getting more women involved in the political sphere. And so we spent a week there. We had a meeting with the deputy speaker, with the speaker himself, and he said, why are you guys anxious about women? He says if you give a woman a job, she will do it completely. You don't have to worry. So if they want to work, let them work. And then he asked one of the young men, who is your, if you close your eyes, who is the person that comes to your mind as your mentor? And then the guy said, oh, my mother. He says, of course, because she taught you how to speak. She taught you how to do everything that you're doing. And right now, if you have a problem, who will you go and see? He said, I'll go and see my mother. He said, does your mother have a PhD? He said, no, she doesn't have a PhD, but she's wise. So in the end, you end up going to the wise person, to get advice, to get counsel. But yet, when you say give a woman a chance, then it becomes an issue. So it's a mental thing that we have. We need to get more he for she champions. I'm not talking about the ones that say I am a he for she champion. And when the time comes to walk the walk, then other excuses come into bear. So we have these two major challenges. The third one is financing. Most women, whatever they get, they're family oriented. So they will take care of family issues, whether it's children's school fees or feeding or whatever the kids are doing at that time. If a woman has money, she has to make sure that her children are secure. So you'll find a lot of us don't have savings. And so when you want to get into politics, it's like, where do I even find the first cent? So you have to go out and source funds from your friends to get involved in the process. I know in 2017, I went out to Nigeria and other places to source money from friends that I had there just to help us, get through the process of the electoral process. And it was tough because you had to go and find funding to do some basic things that you couldn't just let slide. And so we may have a financial issue too. Where do we find funding? I've always said, I wish we would begin to raise funds in a department where whenever we found a woman who was strong, whether it's a representative or a senator, someone can say, well, he has $25,000 to help you. That is a lot in a way of getting a woman elected, and that's where they fail most times, that they don't have the funding required to go to all of the areas and get on the TV, get on the internet. Now, thank God it's free. When I was no such platform. So I had to take myself to every village across my county. Is the third largest in my country. And there were times I couldn't go, I didn't have gas. So I keep saying, can we come up with a fund that all of us who are in positions of trust can begin to contribute? And then we start to look outside and see where we are. Today, there's only one female president, the female president from Ethiopia. In Nigeria, we lost a lot of our strong female senators. I heard that the fees that the political party was charging went up, 5 times. And if it goes up, how does a woman pay that kind of money? If you're thinking it's going to be $10 and you find out it's $10,000. So those things are done to kind of get people out of the process. And I think it's very, very, very sad. But we have to keep pushing. We can't get frustrated and say, well, let's sit down, because we're needed across the world in different places. But the few who make it, sometimes there's just so much going on. You ask a woman, I asked Joyce Banda when she was here a few months ago to launch the Amuje initiative of Ellen Johnson, if she would now, where she says run again as president, she said, no, I would never do it again. So you can imagine the things that we go through, just, make a difference and say, well, women are able to do this, but we get harassed in so many ways. Sometimes it's like, it's not worth it. So it's a lot that goes on, and it's drawing women away from politics. You hear them say, okay, I want to go into the private sector, or I want to do humanitarian work. I don't want to be a politician. There's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of that they throw at you, and sometimes you wonder if it's even worth it.
Oh, wow. I think you are still very advanced in Liberia. You've had the privilege, let me call it a privilege, of having the first elected female president in Africa, Madam Helen Johnson Sirleaf. And now you also have the first, I believe, female vice president in Liberia. Ghana's opposition party, NDC, has just selected a female vice presidential candidate to the former President John Dramani Mahama. So we'll wait and see how they perform during the election. So hopefully Africa would have a rethink about women and their participation in politics. But now I am a man of history. I'd like to, this history of Liberia, what do you think in retrospect you need to learn from the mistakes of the past, especially when you were First Lady?
And I think the first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that we are a country coming out of conflict. So it's not a normal trajectory, that you've gone through and you've grown and you've developed. We're at a point where people were left out of the governance process that caused, a civil war. Someone didn't come from outside to fight us, but we fought ourselves. That has left scars on the family fabric, on the national fabric, and on the fabric of the international community, if you consider all of what they've done to get us here. So the first thing that comes to my mind is, how do we engage and make sure everybody is involved in the governance process? It can no longer be winner take all. If you operate a system that says winner takes all, then you're pushing the country backwards, because that was the reason for the fight in the first place, that a huge portion of our population felt left aside. I hope we've learned those lessons. And so when you hear people clamoring for, whatever it is the opposition clamors for, they want more space, they want more transparency, they want more interest. And each leader has to find a way to get them engaged for the good of the country. Because there could be many people out there who are so-called opposition that might have, an opportunity to help fix something or to build something. And so you can't do a situation where it's winner takes all. Even now, we're in a coalition of 3 parties. And, sometimes I complain that the party that seemed to be the largest, that had tried 2 times, it seems to have taken all of the jobs, all of the opportunities. And so we keep clamoring for more, even in our political party system. So I think the first thing is, how do you engage everyone so that the country becomes ours, and not for us, for a few, because that has been a challenge. The second thing that comes to my mind is that we must take our eyes off of what the international community brings as tokens. Liberia has so much in terms of riches, from agriculture to mining to tourism. Can we begin now to build our own systems so that over time we become stronger based on what we have? We have a lot of gold, and I keep hearing that the gold companies will take the gold out of Liberia. They're not mining it. We don't know how much is going out. We haven't trained our children, a lot of them yet, to get into those sectors that you can control what you're doing. There's some places in Liberia where you can't even go because there are diamond mines, and the people have their own, it's like their own country. So in the diamond and the gold mines, it's like a country within a country. We don't have security there. We can't access it. So you can't even determine what's coming out of the ground and what they're selling, because people will come and package it and just, go to the airport and take it out. So we don't have our resources in order yet. And I think we need to find a way to make sure that our resources work for us. And as we look at it, agriculture has to be the bedrock, because it has an opportunity to feed us, give us food security, allow us to be able to ship excess food into the region or outside the region. And they can garner a lot of support from the young people because they're strong and they can get involved, so that they too are able to get a source of income. That's the quickest way of finding jobs. The third thing is, what do we do with the 60% of young people that are clamoring for jobs? They can't be hired at the governance level, in the government circle, but how can we shift them? Now, if we were able to get into tourism, and I always say that Liberia is one of the most beautiful places I've seen. We've not yet tapped into our tourism sector, where young people can be hired. Agriculture sector is still subsistence, small farms all over the place, nothing real major. We can encourage young people to get into farming so that we're able to do some stuff. So I think those 3 things, unity and opening the governance space so people feel a part of it and not left out, allowing women to take part in the processes that they can add value to, and then finding a way to bring the young people underneath an umbrella where they feel that they can become what they want to be out of what we have that God has given us as resources. So I think those are just a few of the things that I think if we were to put a little bit more attention on. You've been to Monrovia early this year, I think, and if you walk around, you'll see a lot of young people milling around, just milling. Some of them are on drugs. A lot of young people just just walking around doing nothing. And the Bible says an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So we have a huge group of them from county to county in the urban cities doing the same things. We're having harnessed the opportunities of what they give, and they make up 60% of our population. And the only time we seem to be able to work with them is through the electoral process when we want their votes. So we get them to go and cause confusion. We get them to, make the thing scary. We get them to say words to people to make others afraid of getting involved. And it's all negative. How can we use them now to bring positive benefits to helping us, fix this country that all of us so love?
I'm very much interested in Liberia. They say to whom much is given, much is expected. You were present when I was made a chief, and I was Gand, the Kia Zulu of Grand Cape Mount County about 12 years ago.
One of our most places, if you haven't been there, when you come next time, we'll take.
Don't worry, the next time I come, we must go to the Grand Cape. Definitely, we must go. And I must thank you always for that support and that recognition. Now, I would like, I've traveled a bit with you into the villages in Liberia, and I've seen your good work, how you link up with the poorest of the poor. It's uncommon to find a vice president who feels at home with the so-called common people. How have you been able to cope? And if you can also talk to us about your foundation, because I was in your office the other day when you launched that office.
And Dele, I come from a poor family. My parents weren't rich, so they were common people. And so I feel more at home with common people because, again, I grew up in that kind of a setting. And then I feel an affinity to them because I think a lot more can be done to help them rise out of, the below the poverty level that they find themselves. And so I like to sit with them and listen to them. And if I can help, I try to help. That's why the foundation is important for my work, because I have these young girls, about 2,000 of them across the country. I hope one day we'll get to 10,000 young girls that we can support, because we need to strengthen the woman, because everything surrounds her, whether it's the sustainable development goals. If a woman is empowered, she makes sure that children are educated. She'll make sure there's clean water. She'll make sure that they live in an environment that is free from disease. So just that woman, that changes the life of the next generation. If you had many women doing this, you can imagine that our world would be much greater or much better than we see today. And so I know that young girls, especially those in the inner cities, those who are left off the beating track, those who have dropped out of school just because their parents couldn't afford it, and there are many of them across our country. I hope one day we'll go into Ghana and to Sierra Leone and to Guinea, because we need to strengthen girls across our region so that the women are capacitated to a point where they will have no choice but to continue to open their arms to allow us to help. But it's hard when you see people struggling. And during the COVID, I've tried over the last 3-4 months to provide food to many people, the girls across the country, but people who are really destitute, widows, old men who don't have any support, they're widows, they're widowers themselves. And so that a country is considered by how it treats the poorest. That is how countries are gauged. What is it you provide for them? In other countries, we have social security benefits. You have free medicals for people who are, over a certain age, just to give them access in their latter years. A lot of them would have already contributed, in their younger years to the growth and development of our country. But by the time they get retired, they just drop to the side. The retirement money is not enough to give them sustenance so they can be comfortable where they are. So they go back to now being below the poverty line. And I think in Liberia, something needs to be done about how we help people at that level. And I feel that that's where my calling is, so that you change the lives of ordinary people. And there are many at that level instead of always looking at, what's happening at the top. So I feel a little bit more closer to those people because I saw how hard my parents worked during their lifetime just to give us a decent education. And so if you have parents that are unable, both of my parents worked 3 jobs. They had 3 jobs when I was growing up. And it was only on Sunday my father would rest. But Monday to Saturday, he worked at 2 hospitals, and then they had an OBGYN clinic at the house. So, they would get up at 3 o'clock and at 2 o'clock, and I saw them just overwork. And so I asked my father one day, I was about 9, and I said, Daddy, why do you have to work so hard? And he says, I'm working hard to give you guys a better life. And so I knew that whatever was spent on my education, I had to go and maximize it. And I couldn't afford to play. And so there are many parents like that, especially women. They stay in the markets from 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, selling vegetables and other things just to make sure that children are okay. How can we lift those people? I think that is what occupies my mind. And it has to be something that's sustainable across the country. But I think if we're able to lift the poorest of the poor, then we would have achieved the dreams of our country.
Someone is asking, someone is asking if you've tried to partner with some schools in the West, and if you have also tried to fundraise to be able to bring them, because without education, you won't be where you are today. Education is very important.
And I haven't had the opportunity to fundraise outside of Liberia. And so there are a few friends of mine here who will give me support. Of course, there are friends in Nigeria, in Ghana, that will chip in, to help me do what I do. But if the impact really must be great, I'm looking forward to someone saying, we're going to put a dinner together to see how we can get money to get girls into school. We've managed to work with the Chinese ambassador who has scholarships that he's giving to the organization. And so we've identified 25 girls that will go to China when the airport opens and they're able to go to school there. But outside of that, everything we've been doing is because of the friendship that I have and those who help. I'm hoping that we can begin to fundraise in Nigeria and in Ghana and other places, because the work that I do, I think, is something that is necessary for this time, for this age, as we all talk about lifting women. And so I hope one day I'll have the jewel starfish in Nigeria and in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, because I think African women in our region need a lot of help. What do we do with women who want microcredit? And I always laugh when I hear microcredit. It's like, okay, they give the women microcredit, but then they give the men loans, and that's, I keep arguing with people. I say, why do you want to give them microcredit? Women need more than microcredit, but they don't have the opportunities, and they will always tie it into some $500 or $600. What can you do with that? If you have children to support, that money goes right back, and it doesn't help you to grow. Where the men can go into the bank and get $50,000 and $60,000, most of the time they don't pay back. But the women who will pay that money back are assigned to a microcredit box, and I think that has to change as the older women are interested in doing business and other things that will help them sustain themselves, but to also be able to help us grow the economy. So we still have a far way to go. I think women are still in a place where we need a little bit more push in terms of us, in terms of financing, in terms of helping us achieve our own goals. And society leaves us behind, but you'll find out that we're the engine. If you go to the farms, you'll see the women. They're the ones scratching the farms. They're the one planting the cassava. They're the one pulling the cassava out. But when it gets to the next level, then the men take it over and then they sell it and hardly give anything back. So it's like they're just working in a subsistence level. And I feel sad when I visit some of the sites. It doesn't seem like people are going anywhere. They're stuck in a rut, one generation after the other.
Wow. Well, I wish we had more foundations like the Esther Ajayi Foundation that came, and I accompanied Reverend Mother Esther Ajayi and our husband and our team to Liberia. Could you tell us about the charities that she was able to touch and their states today? I know She bought vehicles for some of them, gave them cash donations. I wish Africans can, touch Africans instead of waiting for people in America and Europe. And I would want you to talk about the impact.
And I want when I had the conversation with Mother Ajayi, and I want to say thank you to her in such a special way. She said to me, "I'm coming to Liberia, but I want to help those who need help." And so I realized I wasn't taking her to any place where people are already managing. And when you look at people who are disabled, they're the most vulnerable. And so we took her to visit some disabled organizations, and she was able to help them with vehicles and provided money for some projects. One of the projects called the Group of 77 is a small organization that deals with disabled people, have a huge farm out of the money they receive. They're doing onions and cassava. We were able to get some money to the counties. One county has done a factory. They're making uniforms, for children in the county. So some of them have really started to benefit from the funding that was given. And I'm hoping that the next time she comes to visit, we'll be able to go and see how the little funding that was given to each of the groups, because they got vehicles and about $30,000, was able to help.
Wow.
Julie Andy and the Crusaders for Peace, their sister, also received some funding from that to help further her organization. But most of the people who received funding were people in the disabled groups. And most times people don't look to them. People come in and they look to other places, but they too need help, and they were really grateful. The vehicle they have is still running. They use it when they're going to meetings, to places, so they're not standing on the sidewalks and no one wants to pick them up. So it's giving them a feeling of empowerment. They now have something that engages them to do their work. But further than that, the funding that was given, they've gotten involved in agriculture, and I think this is something that really brings a lot of return. So they've been turning things around and planting onions and cassava. They're trying to expand the farm. They have a cassava mill, so they're going to be doing farina and glue and other things, because the byproducts from the cassava, you can even make glue. So they're excited about it, and we just want to say thank you to Mother Esther Ajayi for coming all the way to Liberia and being of help to us, especially where people are underprivileged, because we keep saying you are disabled, but you are not unable. And so they were disabled, but they've been empowered to do something, and I'm really happy with what they've been able to achieve over the year and a half that they've gotten that funding.
Yes, the issue of rape and female harassment has been on the front burner in Liberia. So what are you doing at the moment?
And we've been talking about this issue, and it's becoming alarming. Almost every day you hear a story in the newspaper or hear on the news, some woman is killed, some children are raped. Just a few days ago, a set of twins, two little girls, were about to be raped. The gentleman had taken off all of his clothes, and he had these two little 3-year-old babies in a room, playing with them and doing all kinds of things. If they hadn't caught him there, they would have probably gotten raped. And the story of the rape in Sierra Leone, the little girl, actually, I think she died. She was like a 2-year-old baby. And I don't know what's happening, because with all of the free women flying around, why do you want to go and rape a 2-year-old baby? Our laws state that once you're accused of rape, you have to stay in jail until the case is concluded. And so you have a lot of people in jail, but the incidence isn't reducing. And so we need to look at punishment too. But what's happening at the other end? During this COVID time, when people are stuck, families are not moving around as they should. Most people are home. The men are on a rampage, and it's really sad. Something really done about stopping it. What I'm doing for my level is I've been in conversation with the YWCA, which is the Young Women Christian Association, for us to build a hostel. Because if a girl is raped, you need to take her out of that situation. You can't leave her there, because if she reports, oh, my uncle raped me, there's no way she can stay there. If she does, she could probably commit suicide, or maybe it'll get worse. So where do we put them? So we can talk about it. We can find out what the issues are with the men for why they're doing what they're doing. But then somewhere has to be created where they can actually go. during the tenure of Madam Salif, we had safe homes, across the country where we could take girls. All of those homes have somehow disappeared. And I think we're going to be working with the YWCA, which has a good property in Monrovia. We can actually build maybe a hostel that can host about 25 girls so that they have somewhere to be moved temporarily while you deal with the psychological effects. And then again, working to get them into school or into some kind of training that gives them an opportunity to better their lives. But it's a real serious thing during COVID. And if you read the reports coming from the West African region, rape and murder of women has gone, through the roof.
Okay, I know you've been very busy all day. When we spoke when I called in the afternoon, you were very, very engaged in some meetings, so you must be getting tired. So I'll ask maybe just 2 more questions and let you go, Madam Vice President. The first is people have asked, so how are you able to keep family going with your busy schedule?
And that's always been, I always say that the children suffer in the midst of all of this, because my son had an injury the other day. And when I spoke to him this morning, he lives in his own apartment. And I said, oh, I'll come by you after work. By the time I got off work, it was like 4:30. I said, oh, I have to go and get ready for the interview I'm having with Dele. So I came straight home and I didn't get a chance to go and see him. So I think, he says, yeah, Mom, if you come, okay. Because you say you're coming and then something else will take place and you say, oh, I was busy doing this and I was busy doing that. I think the children suffer in the midst of all of this because you've gone a lot. During COVID, all of them are home. So there's a lot more support amongst themselves. But normally I'm not, and it's the downside of the work that I do, that I have to go out every day and continue to do so much so that I spend all of my energies and whatever I have trying to make a difference outside. And my children have actually suffered. And so, I think this is a really down part of what I do. I miss birthdays, I miss graduations, I miss the important days. Sometimes by the time I come home, I'm so tired. If someone wants to even talk, oh, Mommy, I want to talk to you about something. I say, I'm too tired. Let's talk about it tomorrow. And then they'll say, oh, tomorrow will never come. So I really feel bad that as a female politician, if you don't step out there and always do your best, it's like you're on a stage, everyone is watching, and they're waiting for you to fall. So every day you have to go out there and say, well, let me see what I can do. How can I do more? How can I do better? How can I ensure that I don't make a mistake? Because a man will fall and everybody will laugh. Okay, it's accepted. If in the course of my work I do something crazy, you will see 20 years of all of what I've done going down the drain. And they will use it. See, the women are unable to do this. So you have to put so much into what you're doing. In the end, your family loses a lot. And it makes me really sad. I hope I will retire from this soon so I can find time to spend with children and grandchildren and just, be the role model that they need, because they actually, a single mother raising a lot of children, not being here when they need it. Sometimes you hear some stories and it's like, oh God, where was I when this was happening? How didn't I see, that there was a problem? Because I'm almost always never there. And it makes me sad.
Well, I know something that you are very, very serious about, and that's your Christian faith. You go to, the last time I came, I realized that you go to a very, very, very small church. In our part of the world, a vice president is expected to be a big person. What is so special about your church? If you could tell us about it. The church is not even, I don't think it's even completed yet.
Yes, it's not. We've been working on it. We're about 75%, but we're not there yet. And, when you're in crisis, Dele, like when I met you, coming out of being first lady, being in exile, coming home just to get to Ghana to do the surgery, took almost 3 weeks. The whole world had to get involved. All of the women had to almost riot in Monrovia before the UN had given me the chance to go out. And when you're in that kind of a situation, most times the friends that you make are friends to the position that you hold. They're not friends for the long haul. And so when you're no longer in that position, it's easy to be shoved to the side. And it was in that process. I was a Lutheran. My parents were Lutheran. I was baptized in the Lutheran church. But when I was in all of that crisis, the Lutheran church kind of shied away. And I went to visit this small Baptist church with a preacher called Reverend Joseph Gardner Johnson. And he would speak truth to power. Sometimes as first lady, I would go and sit in that church. And when he got to talking about the ills in my husband's government, I would hardly be able to pick up my bag and go outside. But he was speaking truth, and he spoke to my heart, because when you get an opportunity like that, you have to ensure that the legacy that you leave is a positive legacy. And so we became friends. When no one wanted to see me visit their churches, you would go, everybody would leave you in a corner. He stretched his hands out to me and accepted me as a daughter. And we've been together for many years. At one point, he left the Baptist church and he said, well, let's go start our own church. That's why we have a small church, but it's growing. I remember when we started the first Sunday, we were in someone's garage. And that day, I went to church and I sat down and tears poured out of my eyes. I'm like, God, how are we going to manage? We're starting afresh. You have said we should start a new ministry. What do we do? Because we're in a garage. We're not more than 15. I say, hey, how do we start? But I mean, little by little, from that garage, we're now where we are. And we're hoping that in the next few years, we can get some land and do a cathedral and do a school, so that the lessons that we're learning as Christians can be a part of the school system. So we train a new generation of young people. But he has a very special place in my heart, like you do, and like a few other friends across Africa, because you guys stretched out your hands to me when I needed it most. And so I'm drawn to his work. I'm a huge supporter of the things that he does. We have a free school, no one pays, because the community we're in, the young children there stay home all day by themselves. Their mothers are house helps in the different communities. So they go out all day and come home at 7 o'clock before they can eat. So we've been giving them free meals. On Saturday, we provide rice and some other items to the mothers. So he has that project. We're doing a few drug addicts. But he wants to do a full school. We go now from kindergarten to 6th grade. We need space to build that school so that we can actually train our children. But he's someone that I care for deeply. I know he's been a father and a shadowy figure for me. There are a few of them. He and Archbishop Duncan Williams is also a father to me. They reached out to me when I really thought my life was over. And each of you kept saying, you're just beginning. How can I just begin? Look at where I am. But because of the encouragement and the support and the counsel over the years, maybe you guys are 5 or 6, but out of all of the people I know, these 5 or 6 persons pulled me out of that depression and allowed me to grow in my Christian faith and learn that with God, all things are possible. And so today I say, I'm grateful for the support. I'm grateful for the prayers. I'm grateful for the advice, because you will come and say, hey, that thing you're doing, don't do it. It's not the right way, without feeling that, oh, she's vice president. To you guys, I'm just a sister. So you want to secure me. You want to make sure I don't make a mistake. And you want to always guide me. And I like that, because, I come from a family of all girls. I have only one brother. And having all of the women around, sometimes the men will say, don't do this and don't do that. And so I've been able to slowly grow to where I am today because of his support, because of the love and the favor of God. But of course, of brothers like you, a few of them of which I have, and I'm grateful.
Thank you so much. Finally, how have you been able to navigate away from the negatives of the past? And is there still any hangover of those bad days in Liberia? Because you've won election after election, and you've become a very formidable woman, a formidable force in your country. How have you been able to spin 360 degrees from the negative to the positive?
I think it's God's favor first, because I wouldn't have been able to do it without the basis of my faith, that God has given each of us a task. And that at the end, He will ask you, I've given you this gift, what have you done with it? So every day I go out, I remember that I'm not on my own, that I'm, spinning around by myself, but I'm a part of a process where God has asked all of us to do certain things. And with that as the basis for what I do, I had to remember that there's much more in your life, and that you go through these phases But the Taylor shadow never seems to dissipate. And I always say I'm grateful that he married me, because then I became first lady, and then it provided a platform for where I am today. He's a father to our children, and we keep it at that level. What I had hoped and what all of you have advised, how do you work to get out of his shadow? And that's another thing that drives me, that my children say she likes perfection. I said, well, I have to like perfection, because if I need to get out of this shadow to show that though he was my husband, but that I have my own life and I have my own destiny and I have my own play. I'm privileged that I have become such a national leader, but then, everything you do has to tie into where you're going as an individual. And so I'm grateful that by the favor of God and the blessings of many friends, I've been able to work, that I haven't been able to just get stuck somewhere and they remember me as, oh, she was just the first lady. For some quirk of fate, God allowed me to transition from just being the first lady to being elected as a senator. And there were difficult times. I had to make some choices. I have to speak about some issues. People say I'm too controversial, but depending what's happening at the time, I take a position and I stand there. This morning, I was looking at WhatsApp chat room that I'm a member with some Nigerians and Ghanaians, just a think tank. And someone posted this post, because it's an electoral process, and it says, oh, as the electoral process begin, you guys should try to, at least if you elect one thief, you know that he has Alibaba and the 40 thieves. So if you elect Alibaba, he will have only 40 thieves. So emotionally, I went and posted it. Oh, everybody was in a rage. And I was like, how do we deal with the substance of our nations? The truth is there's just too much corruption. A lot of things that we should be doing, we're not able to do. And even whether it's perceived or not, there are a lot of issues happening and people are concerned. But how can that be changed? Dele, can only be changed if we have people who come to the table who actually love Liberia. So it shouldn't be about the money. It should be about the characters. If we're looking for characters, we'll find some. But people come, they go and credit money for all the plays, and they come and spend it during the campaign. And people say, oh, this person is rich. That doesn't give you character. It doesn't help us build. And so we keep electing some of the same old people who happen to get into positions of trust. In the end, you can't see what's happening, and then we complain, oh, we made a mistake. So, when I posted that Alibaba and the 14 Tuesday, my sister who sent me a message, hey, Joel, this one is too much. I said, well, we're in an electoral period. Everybody's complaining Liberia isn't growing. We're not developing. How can we change our mindset? People say, oh, they have a saying in Liberia, Dele, and they say, he's the worst of the evils. You have 2-3 persons. They say, well, he picked the least of the evils. Why are we picking evils? Why? And then we expect that our country will grow and it will develop, and will not. We must now look for national leaders who can be put into places of trust, especially in the legislature. But that's where the decisions are made. If we keep electing the same caliber of people, in the end, we'll find out that our country will stay stagnated, though we have a lot of resources at our disposal. Or we're not thinking about it. Everybody thinks about, oh, what can I get from this government system? And I think in order for us to begin to change, Martin Luther King says if we don't begin to change who we are and find the people who are prepared to make the difference in our lives, then we'll be stuck right here and I'll get old and leave the stage, and then Liberia will still be where it is. So sometimes I like to elicit some feelings of people so that people begin to think outside of the box. How can we now look at a playing field? We need to elect 15 senators. Where are the 15 senators we want? What are the characters that we're looking for? What is what is the integrity? What do they love Liberia? Do they love themselves? And if we just look at things the way they normally are, then we'll keep doing the same mistake. And people will say, oh, this government failed us. But the government is a portion, is a part of many parts. It's a whole of many parts. And so if each part doesn't work, then the entire part, the whole doesn't work. And so, sometimes I will post things like that just to elicit the feelings of others, to look beyond where we are, to see how we can do better. Can we do better? Yes, we can. Are we doing better? Maybe to start, we're looking at one group of people. Oh, you got to elect either John Brown or Peter Paul. Both of them aren't good. They haven't had a good stewardship. They haven't shown good stewardship in their lives. So how do you not give them a second or a third chance? Are we going to change them? No, we don't. And so, you know, a lot of people were a little upset about it. But again, I mean, I just have to say what I have to say at sometimes, and we'll take it from there.
I think you're too tough. So when are you going? When
I
are you
want
going?
better.
When are you going to slow down, madam?
I want better. I want better. And I grew up here. I saw a beautiful country. What we've done between when I turned 16 years, 17 years old and went to the university, and now everything has actually turned upside down. And I go and I visit my friends in Ghana, and I visit people in Nigeria, and I visit other countries, and people's nations are going ahead. They're developing, they're growing. They have issues, so, but at least you can see the growth and development. Where are we? We're stuck in a 30, 40-year walk. We haven't shifted. How do we shift out of where we are so that all of what has happened will not be in vain? My son asked me a couple of years ago, Mommy, I got one question that I can't get out of my head. And I said, what is it? He said, so what was the war all about? For 3 seconds, I looked at him and I couldn't answer. He says, I really want to know because it seems as if we haven't learned anything. You know, we keep coming and doing the same thing, making the same mistake. Then we haven't learned. And that's what drives me sometimes. And people say, oh, you took. But if we don't get a chance to look at where we are and what we need to see, how can we lift others? How can we ensure that many more people are involved so that our country grows and develops? We're not going anywhere. And, you know, when I go to Ghana and come back for 3 days, I'm depressed. Because, you know, everything works in Accra. There are more than maybe 8 million people in Accra. We're only 5 million people in Liberia. What is the issue? They used to come here for education. They will come here for medicine. They will come here for supplies. So the country that gave birth to all of these countries cannot be where we are. And that's something I go to bed with every night, and I worry, how do we, in our generation, make that shift so that the younger children can stop looking for places to go. All of them want to leave Nigeria. If you go and see the lines where they have DV, the diversity visa that you can play, you know, if suddenly go away, they're on the lines for weeks. Everybody's trying to get out of Liberia. And everything we need is on our feet. How do we transform that mindset to say, hey, let's stay here and build? And it's saddening for me. And
But do you think your message is resonating with the people? Because what happens is that people like you get isolated. You are vocal, you are patriotic, and then, but the people themselves, are you sure they are ready to liberate themselves from that mindset?
And if you see me being elected as vice president, I think it shows you that people want a better life. Here is someone talking about how it can be better. How can we push the system to make it better? But that is what government is responsible for. We are 170, I think 174, 175 years this year. How do we push that system? And so I think people are hoping against all hope. They're hoping against all hope that somehow their lives will improve. But government has to set the standard so that things can shift in a way that helps people improve their lives. And so people are hoping, you know, on our government. People are hoping that the changes that we need to make will be made. And it can only be done if many persons see it that way, that we are being given these assignments as a privilege. And the Bible says God will raise one and remove another. It could have been Ambassador Joseph Boyka as president and whoever he had chosen as vice president. The choice was made to give us this opportunity. So we have more of a responsibility to make sure that at the end of it, we've brought better to our country than to say, oh, we were here for 6 years and they left things just as they were. Now I go to bed every night and I worry about that. If there were many more people worrying about how we make a change, then maybe something will finally happen to shift us. It's been 40 years. It's one generation. If you look at the biblical generation, it's 40 years since the coup started. Where are we? Are we still where we were? I think we still are. And if we don't find a way to fix it, then all of this would have been in vain. And I think too much went into getting us elected. So we have the responsibility to do better.
Madam Vice President, I'm sure I'll invite you back again. I always enjoy our conversations, and I want to thank you. Thank you so much for joining me again this evening, all the way from Liberia. I wish you well. My highest regards to Mr. President, President George Weah, You know, Nigerians love him because of football. You know, so he's our idol in Nigeria. So my regards to him. And we pray that God will continue to keep both of you together to work for the betterment of your wonderful country. Thank you so much, Madam Vice President. And we will end with a song again, Amazing Grace.
Thank you,
May
sir.
God continue to be with you.
What is the loss of your daughter, Mona?
Oh, I'm sure that after now, I'll be speaking to people in Ghana to hear what is going on. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to feel, and grace my fears relieve. How precious is that grace appears, the hour I first believed.
Thank you, Madam Vice President, and good night. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And my dear viewers, thank you so much for joining us again. God bless you all and sleep well. Good night.